didn't get quite as far with the world's worst 68 Charger project as I had hoped we would this summer, but we made progress nonetheless. It is deep into September, we have no leaves on the trees on my hill anymore, and we could get snow any week now, worst case. That said, I'm packing the Charger up for winter. It had lived in the carport, but I kind of need that to work on other things that are a little closer to actually, being road legal. So I figured before I throw the tarp on it completely, we would go over what was accomplished this summer and touch on the history of the vehicle briefly because there are a lot more of you watching now. By the way, that is greatly appreciated. I never thought I would get up to 2,000 some subscribers. Please just keep doing what you're doing. Comment, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. It's all very helpful. I suppose we'll start at the beginning. When we discovered this car, the roof wasn't up here. It was literally touching the floor pan. So while yes, this still looks like hammered shit, it is a lot better than it was. The question everybody asks whenever I post a picture of this anywhere or put up a video is, what the fuck happened to the car? Well, you see, in the 80s, these were not treasures that were sought after by everybody with a pulse. They were just your everyday used car back then. So when it broke down on the side of the highway, it was kind of just engulfed by the private junkyard of a roadhouse. And yeah, there it sat until it was squished. You can still see track marks on the trunk lid and a couple different places on the roof. For very evident reasons, we call this the bad side of the car. That's because it got the brunt of the damage when it went up and over here. So after the roadhouse shut down, everything sat abandoned for 30-40 years. I had known about this car for a number of years because a friend of mine lived out that way, and last summer we were finally able to go pick it up. The second most common question I get asked is why? Why go to all the trouble to drag this out of the woods? It's a wreck. It's a total loss. And yeah, it is in really bad shape. But if you were in it just to make money, which I am not, there were plenty of good parts, like this front bumper for instance, perfect for a driver quality car. The dash is super complete, back bumper is in good shape as well, tail panel, there's a lot of good usable parts on this car still. However, unlike pretty much everybody else in the hobby at this point it seems, I didn't pick it up because I thought I could make a few bucks off of it. Since I was a wee lad, the one car I told myself I needed to own before I died was a 68 Dodge Charger. And guess what? This is most of a 68 Dodge Charger. I'm sure everybody knows what these cars bring in the classic car industry at this point. I was never going to be able to afford even just a roller that has floor pans in it, let alone a driver quality car. I'm not the type of person who can drop a lump sum on one vehicle at one given time. But I can nickel and dime something over the next 30 years. And to that, most people say, oh, this is unrestorable. And yeah, it probably is fucking unrestorable, but you could probably put it back together good enough to be on the road as a daily driver. Unlike most cars this sought after that sit in the woods for 30-40 years, this still has all the VIN tags and stampings and everything. And because it's a second-gen Charger, you can rebuild it from pretty much just those items. And I'm not even going to do that anytime soon. What I want in the near future is to just get it to be able to run and drive on and off of a trailer to take it to car shows. I have trailered it to a show in the past, and it got a lot more attention than a 69 Dodge Charger that was in operating condition. I actually towed it there with the old International. Whether or not people like to admit it, when they see something like this, they're intrigued. They want to know the story. They want to know the why. It's why you see channels like Pole Barn Garage with the Holy Goat and everything blowing up lately. The average Joe has been so priced out of the market when it comes to desirable muscle car era vehicles, we kind of got to do stuff like this. And I'm not going to try to do something with this car just for the sake of making it on YouTube or whatever. I'm never going to make it on YouTube. I just want to document the story of this car, and if one person is inspired to do something similar because they watch this bullshit, all the better. People don't seem to do things just for the fun of it like they used to. I grew up watching Top Gear and Roadkill, the grand adventures that the trio from Top Gear always went on, and the insane builds Roadkill used to do on a budget in their golden years really helped to mold my chosen niche in the automotive culture, which is doing stupid stuff for no apparent reason. Hell, just going to get the car was an adventure all in itself. When we did that, there were no hubs up front. We were just dragging this thing around on hoods and over stumps. It's not like we were going to hurt it. The only thing I was concerned about the entire time was not fucking up the front bumper. After it was on the trailer, we started popping up the roof. And it needs a lot more massaging to be, somewhat the correct shape again. But you can actually sit inside the car now, not on top of the car. Later that evening, I tore the entire interior out of this thing. It was infested in ants. The seats were not savable because all the framework was crushed by the roof. At that point, it was all just dead weight. What that revealed, however, were how nice the floors were. Besides right back there, which was the low spot where the water collected, it's all kind of fucking nice in here for a second-gen Charger. Same goes for all the structure up here and the frame rails in the back. They might not be the right shape, but they're there and they're solid. If this hadn't have been crushed, it would have been a throw an engine and transmission in it and go kind of car, which really, really hurts to think about. Everything here on the dash is in phenomenal shape. Has a little buddy heater down there. But anyway, once we got back into town, I left it on the trailer for a little bit, did some minor body work to that fender to get a wheel under there and everything. Later that fall, we drug it off the trailer. Late last fall, early winter, I was finally able to get this rolling around. This car came factory with 11-inch drum brakes, and I couldn't find those anywhere, so I put 10-inch under there just so it'll roll for now. And that was about it for that winter, because I don't have a heated workspace. You're kind of cut off at a certain point. This summer, though, I had grand ambitions of getting this car to the point of running and driving on and off a trailer, like I mentioned before, and taking it to our yearly car show. Cars with Character down at the Fox Den in Fox, Alaska. If you're local, you should check it out. Well, at that point, this was not here, so I started scheming and ended up taking the 250,000-mile 318 out of the 74 Charger that had a pretty bad miss, and I tossed it in the flat Charger. Because just to move around the yard, it doesn't fucking matter if it misses. We threw another 318 in the Petty Charger, which had a lot more power, but it smokes really, really bad. I actually picked up a 360 and 727 to throw in here next summer, so look for that video once, the snow melts. Things were rocking along pretty well, actually. I think the only thing I got to do in here still is rudimentary wiring, figure out a lower rad hose, because this radiator's out of a Jeep, transmission linkage and cooling lines, and I think that was it. And all the work was of the utmost quality, as you can tell by the radiator bracket. But that's kind of what's great about it. It really does not matter at this point. Then came the big setback. I could not find the correct slip yoke anywhere in town for this transmission, and it took forever to get one through Summit. therefore missing the car show, and I kind of lost momentum on the project after that. I picked up other things like that convertible Valiant I've been making videos on, and this kind of just sat in the carport. Well, now it sits outside because the before mentioned Valiant is now taking up residence in the carport. And it's starting to come together really nice, actually. There'll be a video on this here shortly. Going into next year, here's the plan. I finally have the correct slip yoke, so we can have a drive shaft made sometime next spring. I will either get ambitious and finish the Valiant to the point I will and pull this back in the carport and get working early, or we're going to need to wait until the snow starts to thaw. Once the drive shaft is built, it should just take a day or two to get all of this finished up. And then boom, we're starting the automotive season up here with a yard driving flat 1968 Dodge Charger that we can start to take to shows. So if this project at all interests you, or you just want to watch for the stupidity, subscribe and keep an eye out for that video, because the second this thing fires up, we're doing yard burnouts. And there's only going to be more adventure and hijinks from there. Now here's your call to action. If you are watching this and happen to have a stockpile of second-gen Dodge Charger parts, let me know, please. I don't need or want brand new items. I want stuff that will look kind of at home on the car, but is more the correct shape. If you live in Alaska, that's a bonus. If not, I hope your prices are pretty reasonable, because I'm going to get raped by shipping anyway. I do know where a 69 Dodge Charger is sitting off the side of a cliff that I can get the roof structure off of, and it's in a lot better shape than this one. So we might end up needing to take a road trip to go grab that next summer. But yep, that's just a brief recap of what we've been doing with this car over the last year now. It can only get better. That's going to take a lot of time. Hopefully not a lot of money if we do it right. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you to everybody who helped to go out and grab this car from the middle of the woods in the first place. On the channel, there's a playlist dedicated to the flat Charger, and here's the playlist for the ongoing series about this 1964 Plymouth Valiant convertible we've been working on. Does your Charger have a plywood hood? I don't think so.